Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I will be presenting how with formulas only we can transform values that are actually a text into numbers that Excel can recognize as numbers. So what is the problem here? Because of my original settings in Windows, for me decimal separator is actually a comma, but here it is different because in this specific cell, decimal separator is a dot. So regardless of whatever I try, this will always be as a dot and will not be recognized as number by Excel. My second issue is that in one of the numbers like this one here and those one here and also here, dot is actually decimal separator. However, in case of 1 million and 1 million here, dot is actually a thousand separator. This is actually a common feature with multiple programs that do not have correctly written number recognition, or that are created in a lazy way. So we have to somehow deal with this in Excel. And because of the requirements, we need to do it using formula. So firstly, I will be presenting all the formulas in their actually written form, and then we will write formulas ourselves. So firstly, if we press F2, we can see the formula here. So how does it work? It's actually quite simple. The number here with the minus at the end is actually negative number, and everything else is a positive number. So if we go here, first we need to check this condition. So in the if formula, I am checking in the logical test if first character from the right is this minus. If this is the true, then if this is true, then I'm simply removing the minus with an empty text string. And in the second part, I'm replacing the dot with the comma. And then with simple negation at the start, I'm negating the number I created. And because of how Excel works, any text that is a number recognizable by Excel will be automatically transformed into a number. So since the negative numbers are resolved in this part here, now we have to deal with the positive numbers. So the formula is identical to the one above with one small exception. Here I'm using double negation. As above, any math operation on a text string that is actually a number recognizable by Excel, we will create a positive number value. And this will work for any number that has comma as decimal separator, but it will not work for a number that has dot as thousand separator. So here, let's look at the formula further. So I'm using if error, and its second argument is the formula here. So this is basically very similar to the one formula above with small difference. I'm starting exactly the same. I'm checking if this is true, and if so, I'm replacing the minus with empty string, and then I'm replacing my 1000 separator with null text string. And then, using a minus, I'm converting this again to text. And this formula will work identical to the one above, in exception that it's doubly negated in front, which will convert it to positive number. And with those formulas created like so, as you can see here, I'm receiving the number 1 million. And if I check the total sum here at the end, it is 0, which means that every single value was transformed correctly into a number because this data set in our software was actually adding up to 0. So we have confirmation that this calculation in Excel works correctly. Now for the harder part, and this is Lambda function. So you may not heard about Lambda, and it is quite powerful function that can be used as programmable custom function created directly in Excel. And what you can see here is basically my formula from the B column right here, and then it's Lambda. And then it's inside Lambda. So if I go to the parameter or calculation, it will show me this. This is the name I selected and I created, and this can be whatever you want. It can be even single letter, double letter, or even a text like so. And then in the parameter or calculation, instead of inputting any specific cell, I'm simply placing this parameter from Lambda. And by doing so, I've created a formula that's very easily usable in different places. And at the end, this one here is the range that my Lambda is working on. Why am I using this like this, you might ask? Because I wanted to show how the basics of Lambda works. So, as the title of this column says, this is basic Lambda created in the name manager. And as you can see, I named this function my sub Lambda and then used this specific range to clear it. So what you need to do to have it like so, it's very simple. Firstly, you need to create your Lambda, and then with the equal sign, you need to copy it, except the range that you are working on, of course. Control C. Let's go to Formulas, Name Manager, New, and I will call it Lambda for YouTube. And here in refers to, I'm placing my whole formula. Here you can comment this, and it will tell you what this function actually does. So this is my Lambda, for example, and press OK. And as you can see, it's here. Let's close it, and let's remove this Lambda here, and let's start typing. Lambda for YouTube popped up. And as you can see, the description also shows this is my Lambda. So I will use it as normal Excel function where I will select all the cells from here. Let's close the parentheses and press enter. And as you can see, the sum is 0, so everything is working correctly. And I'm 100% sure that this is correct. However, this has some sort of well, they're not issues, they are inconveniences, let's call it. Because if your formula has different separators as thousand separator and decimal separator, then this formula will not work because it has inserted permanently that the dot is your decimal separator and comma is your new decimal separator. And here it's the same. That dot is your thousand separator and the null string is your new thousand separator. And this might be different for you. So what you can do is to create more advanced Lambda function. So I will freeze the panes here. Okay, so how this one works? It's very similar to the previous one. Instead, so this one is different. So this Lambda works differently. Here I'm having parameter or calculation that is my range, exactly the same as in the Lambda before this one. And here is my second parameter that I also named myself. My third parameter, also created by myself. My fourth parameter, also I created this one. And the last one. And with those parameters, I named them very specifically so I will know what parameter I'm using currently in my formula. So as you can see here in the formula below, it is actually the same word for word as the one before with small difference. Here in the first substitute function in the old text, instead my old decimal separator, I'm having the parameter I created here. And my new decimal separator also is the parameter I created here. We will be inputting them into our Lambda shortly. Then I had to deal with the same issue, but for the thousand separator. So I created old thousand separator and new thousand separator. So those two parameters, as you can see, are inserted here and inserted here. And in the line below, it's the same case. And at the end of my Lambda, I'm having my range, my old decimal separator, my new decimal separator, my new thousand separator, sorry, my old thousand separator and my new thousand separator. And as you can see, this works. Now, so now we can create Lambda from this using the name manager. And you will see one cool thing about Lambda as well. So if I copy this, go to formulas, name manager, new, Lambda for YouTube, and choosable parameters. And I'm pasting the formula here. I'm not using any comments here. Okay. And my formula is ready. And now I will replace this with this one. And as you can see, Lambda for YouTube, choosable parameters. And here is my Lambda, where it specifies my range, which will be this one, this range here. My old decimal separator is a dot. My new decimal separator is comma. Everything must be in quotes. My old thousand separator is a dot. And my new thousand separator is empty text string. And when I close the parentheses and press enter, as you can see, we received this specific result, which means that if we can check it, yes, it adds to 0, which means our Lambda is working correctly. Now, you might also need a case where you want to omit some of the parameters because you don't want them, or this case is not for you or for your specific purpose. So, in here, as you can see, I chose this formula, and my new thousand separator is actually in the square brackets. Because if you put new parameter into square brackets, Lambda will know that this parameter is optional. However, you also need to tell Lambda what will happen if the parameter is omitted or is skipped. So, as you can see, this one is getting even longer than the previous one. And the reason for this is because in the place of because here in the place of the new thousand separator, it's actually omitted. So I'm using formula that is formula created specifically for Lambda. That is one of the Lambda helper functions to help with optional parameters. And if this is true, it will create one. Sorry, if is omitted will result in true, then we will use the standard empty string thousand separator, and if it is not omitted, we will use the thousand separated provided by us in the formula. And if we go here to check how this works, and when we open the brackets, as you can see, the last parameter, my new thousand separator, is actually in square brackets, just like in any other Excel function where you can skip parameters or for parts of the formula. So you know this is optional. And if we won't use it, it still works because it knows that it needs to replace this omitted parameter with empty text string as default value. And of course, you can create your own default value within the formula. And as you can see in the next formula, this can get even more complicated and even more advanced, where we will be not using old thousand separator and the new thousand separator as necessary ingredients for the formula. And this works exactly the same. So if IsOmitted will generate true, it will think that dot is your standard thousand separator. And again, you can program this to create your own standard decimal separator or thousand separator or any other. And the rest is basically the same. So if you don't provide all thousand separator, it will be used, dot will be used. In any other case, it will be used, this function will use the parameter that you specified in this formula. So if we go here, you can see I'm providing only old decimal separator and new decimal separator without thousand separators. So this can, of course, be extended that only range is necessary parameter inside the Lambda function, but this also makes it that much advanced function. So now, with this introduction out of the way, let's start typing the formula ourselves. So first, whenever you deal with the new data, you need to verify your requirements, what you want to achieve and how to achieve it. There are nearly or maybe even over 500 Excel formulas themselves, not mentioning the additional tools that we have within Excel that are Power Query, DAX, pivot tables, ranges, photos, and whatever else. So please be aware that this solution may be not the only one, and also that you can create your own solutions when needed. So whenever working with a new data set, you need to evaluate what is the goal and how to achieve it. So our goal is to transform the text that's here into numbers, as we established before. How we can achieve this? Very simple. We need to replace every dot that is a decimal separator with a decimal separator that is recognizable by our regional settings. For me, it's comma. And in the line here, we need to evaluate what is our thousand separator. It's also a dot. So we cannot simply remove all dots and replace them with commas, because it will create incorrect results. We need to take it step by step and see what will be happening with our data. And also, as you can see, the additional trouble is that the negative numbers have the minus at the end of the text string instead of the beginning of the text string. Also, I know this is a text because I did not use any formatting, and it's adjusted to the left instead of to the right. So when you type any number in Excel, it will automatically be adjusted to the right. If you type any text in Excel, it will be automatically adjusted to the left. So without without further issue, let's start. About the negation in my formulas first. So, as you can see, this is a text. And if I use just equal sign, I will receive the same result. However, if I know this is a positive number and I use double negation or add 0 or multiply by 1, it will simply convert this to a number. So you don't need to try very hard to convert text to numbers. This is the most basic and simple solution. So when verifying what you need to do and what are your original settings, you need to press Windows plus R and type intl.cpl, press enter, and here is your standard original settings. So this is your date settings, local date, hours settings, and what is the first date of the week. Poniedziałek is actually a Monday, so it's my settings. And if we go to here, additional settings, you can see what is my decimal symbol. It's a comma. My standard number of decimal symbols. This also will be reflected in Excel if you change this. And all other settings are here. So this is where you can verify what is your settings and what you can do with it. So first, let's do most basic thing to convert text to number that you can check if it works. So if you do double negation on all the text that you want to convert, it will not change its sign. It will simply convert text to numbers, as I showed just before on the 1, 2, 3 example. But here, in every single case, we are getting value error, which means this trick didn't work. So we need to evaluate it further. And now the basic formula, which is if, will come to aid us. Because, as I just said, we have negative and positive numbers, and we need to resolve both cases separately. So, equal, if, and now left all, enter to skip to another line, and my logical test is to check if it has negative number at the end. You can also check the opposite if it doesn't have the negative number at the end. But we will stick to this solution because it is the same solution that I already used in the start sheet. So for the convenience sake and unity's sake, let's do it the same way. Right? And as you type it, it will tell you that it will return specific number of characters from the end of the text string. So I'm choosing my text as this one, 1, and if value is true, and now I will compare it to the minus at the end. And I will do a very simple thing. I want to say that if this has minus at the end, I want it to say A, and if it doesn't, I want it to say B. Yes, it's correct. Now I'll edit the formulas and I will select the whole range so I can work on the whole range instead of cell by cell. And as you can see on this example, it works perfectly. Now I know that I can proceed with further development of my formula. So I go to the edit mode, and I will first try to fix the first case. So if the value is true, which means if it finds that the number has minus at the end, I know this is a negative number that I need to convert it. So single minus will work. Now, in my case, as I shown you in the original settings, I need to convert my dot as decimal separator into comma, and I need to replace the minus sign with empty text string, because otherwise Excel will not recognize this as a number. So let's start with the substitute formula, which is good for substituting text. In the first parameter, it asks me to provide the text, which is the exact same range as above. So now my text is created. My old text is minus, so I will select minus, and my new text is empty text string. So if I close the parentheses here, and as you can see, after accepting it, it has value error, which means it still cannot convert this to a number. So I will show you what it actually did. As you can see, it replaced the minus with empty text string. So now I will add another substitute function, and at the end of it, another semicolon. My old text is a dot, my new text is a comma, and I'm closing the formula. And as you can see, it replaces comma, it replaces dot with comma everywhere in those cases. So now I know that my decimal separator is correct. I know my thousand separator is not correct, which will be relevant quite soon. So now I can proceed to change this to a number with simple negation. And as you can see, as expected, in this row, my formula did not convert this to a number because it cannot do so. So let's work on this formula further. Now we've converted the negative numbers into actual numbers, and now we need to do exactly the same thing with the positive numbers. So we will go here to the B, replace the B with my formula, and add another minus, because double negation is actually a plus, and we can also use a plus. And as you can see here, it converted this to text. So as you can see, I've made a mistake because the plus sign did not convert this to a number, which I actually did not expect. Well, you live, you learn. What can you do? Now we've got two errors. This one here and this one here. So we will go here. We will space it out into next row. And if error formula, comma at the end, left Alt Enter to go to another lines. Let's do few of them. And what we will do is basically we will copy this whole solution from here, paste it down below, and now I need to simply change this comma into an empty text string. And if I close the if error formula, press enter, as you can see, it works. So let's do a check. The sum is 0, which means the formula is working correctly on the data set that we have. And it's always good to work on small data set before proceeding into a huge data set or enormous data set. So my first formula is ready. So now let's go and create Lambda out of it. So first, I'm copying everything except the equal sign equals Lambda, my range as the parameter I'm choosing. I can do whatever I want. It can even be my R. And now the calculation. I'm placing the pasted formula here. And now I'm copying my parameter so I won't make any mistakes in replacing the values. And I want this formula to work on the range I will be providing to Lambda, which means Lambda will work on anything I input instead of my R. So for this, I will replace every static range that's here with my parameter. And by clicking the bolded text in the formula you are working on, you can be 100% sure that it will select only the first part of the formula that you are working on, and you will not make any mistakes with removing, deleting, or bypassing any semicolons, colons, or whatever else your settings in Excel are. Okay, and now if I go at the end and I will close my Lambda function and press enter, I'm getting the calculation error because Lambda currently does not know the range or the parameter values that it needs to work on, which means it's nothing, and thus creating the error that you can see. That's why if we go into the formula again, open parentheses, and provide one cell, like so, with our Lambda, you can see it started working. And yes, we can copy it, go to the bottom, and paste it again, like so. You see it works. However, it requires you some manual work. So let's remove this. Let's go again here, and let's expand our range into the whole range that we want to work on. Press enter, and the formula got spelled correctly. And as you can see, the sum is 0, which means our Lambda is working. So, as I shown before, now you can go here, you can copy your Lambda with the equal sign, go into the formulas, name manager, create new. We will call this yet another Lambda, and now we will paste the formula here. Let's click OK. Let's close this. Yet another lambda. And as you can see, my R is in the tooltip here. So I will select simple everything, and it got spelled correctly. So we've done the first lambda, and since now on I will not be showing how to create my own lambda from the name manager, because I've already shown it a few times. So whatever lambda you will create, you can do it in the exact same steps as I did. So now we want to expand our lambda by giving it another, or should I say more parameters. So what I'm doing is I'm actually copying everything, pasting everything into the formula, and now it's the simple case of knowing what I want to do and how. So first, my parameter, and yes, I will call it basically the same, which is my old decimal separator. I will copy this, and I need to remember to put another semicolon in, and in every single place where I have hard-coded a old decimal separator, I need to replace it with this parameter here. And if I go here, there will be no tooltip, but I can simply use a semicolon, and in my old decimal separator, I can put dot. And with this, I can press enter. And as you can see again, it's working. So I can continue this process further. And now I will create my new decimal separator. And another semicolon, simple copy. And I will replace this new decimal separator with the parameter from the lambda function. And here in lambda, another semicolon, and in quotes, my new decimal separator. Enter. As you can see, it's 0, so I know it's 100% correct. Now I need to do the exact same thing with the thousand separator. Semicolon at the end, copy. And at the end, my old thousand separator, which is also a dot. Enter to test. It works. And the final adjustment is my new thousand separator, another semicolon, another copying, going to the end here, replace this one, replace this one, and at the end, empty text string as new thousand separator. Oh, I've done something wrong. Yeah. it should be semicolon here. Enter, and as you can see, again, it works. So now we have created Lambda that in which you can specify your separators, but they need to be provided in the Lambda function. So if I go and use my Lambda functions, with choosable parameters, as you can see, it has my range, old decimal separator, new decimal separator, old thousand separator, and new thousand separator, and all of them needs to be provided. So like in any normal function, we are providing the range, the old decimal separator, the new decimal separator, the new old thousand separator, and the new thousand separator, which is empty text string. Enter, enter, and it works. Now let's go back. And since I'm using this Lambda, I will simply copy it, F2, paste it, and now I want to use IsOmitted to make it more sustainable or more advanced even. So how does it work? It's very simple, and I will start with new thousand separator. The reason is the optional parameters need to be at the end of parameter list before the formula itself. So as you can see, here is my first parameter, second parameter, third, fourth, fifth, and at the sixth parameter, I'm having my calculation. So the second last is the optional parameter. And even here you can see the square brackets that are telling you that this is not mandatory when typing Lambda function. Only the first one is mandatory. So now that this is set up as optional parameter, we need to tell Lambda what will happen if it is not absent or omitted. So in the place of my new thousand separator, I will simply press Alt-Enter to put it into the new line. I will do the exact same thing with this one because this is the same separator. And I will use the if formula. Then is omitted, which is Lambda helper function, as I already mentioned, that checks if this specific parameter is omitted or not. And here is my logical test, which is actually is omitted with the new thousand separator. And if is omitted, I want the empty text string to be the default value for this specific case. So if your thousand separator is any other character, you can put it here. And then if it's not omitted, which is value if false parameter in the if statement, you can simply put the parameter in its name. And then close the if statement, and then semicolon, so it will sorry, not semicolon, No, I need the semicolon. And let's start again. So here I wish to omit some. Let's start again. So now I want to omit one of the parameters in my lambda function. So it will be optional parameter. So first I will format my formula so that the parameter I'm omitting is actually in the new line. And now the parameter I wish to be optional, I will input into the square brackets. And now I will use formulas like this. So first, if formula, then is omitted formula, which checks this parameter if it is omitted or not. And if it is omitted, I want it to be empty text string. And if it isn't omitted, I want it to be this specific parameter. And now after I closed my parentheses, I'm going at the end, press enter, and I know it works. So I can copy this formula and simply replace this parameter here. And as you can see, it still works. And at the end, my new thousand separator, I will simply remove it. And the formula works again perfectly. So let's see how it works. Another lambda, one parameter omitted. And as you can see, here is my range. One decimeters, first the decimal separator, new decimal separator, or thousand separator, and new thousand separator as optional parameter. So I'm selecting my range. Old decimal separation is dot, new is comma, old thousand separator is also a dot, and the new thousand separator will be omitted. Yes, it's 0, so it works. And now how to do it with more parameters? Basically, you need to repeat the same process for another parameter, which means you need to paste the formula and start editing it. So let's select the second last parameter, because you need to do this in specific order, because the optional parameters must be at the end of the parameter list. And now this is my old thousand separator. So what I will do actually is to place this part of a text in the next line. And here I'm doing the same. And if is omitted, my parameter, I'm closing parentheses. If it is omitted, I want it to be a dot, sadly hard-coded, and then my old thousand separator. And then I'm closing the if bracket. And let me go to the end. Yes, it works. And now to copy the correct formula from here, which is if is omitted my old thousand separator. Yes, this is the one. And I'm replacing this single one with the formula I copied. Let's go here, Alt F2. And since this is the case, I will simply remove the second last parameter, and it still works, which means we did everything correctly. And now we can use the formula from the name manager. I will choose this one. And as you can see, it's my range, old decimal separator, new decimal separator, and thousand separator as optional parameters, which means I'm selecting this range here. And as you can see, I skipped to the beginning of the workbook. So Ctrl backspace to enter the same cell that we are currently in with the formula. You can use this anytime when typing a formula. My old decimal separator is dot. My new decimal separator is comma. And I don't need to provide any more parameters. Enter. And as you can see, it works. And one more thing. If I go for the Lambda function, when I say thousands omitted, here is the description. Lambda, it converts text numbers to Excel recognizable numbers. If last two parameters are omitted, it will use dot as default thousand separator and nothing as the new thousand separator, which means it's described correctly, and this means that you can input any description to your Lambda that you wish so, and this will make it accessible through this entire workbook. And if you wish to save this Lambda somewhere, you can do so by creating a template. And actually, Mike Girvin from Excel is Fun, in his extended video, is showing how to create a template to save all your lambdas. So you can go visit Mike Girvin's YouTube channel for this. And I wish you good luck with your Excel. I hope you enjoy. Please help me reach 1,000 subscribers this year. And if you have any more questions or issues with this, please let me know in the comment section, and I will try to answer every single issue you have in regards to these Lambda formulas. I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and good luck to you all, and let Excel be easy. Thank you and bye.